When I first started, the things were pretty small, and you had to fight for about everything that you were to get from your government agencies. And I think the government agencies and the public in general have come to accept Parks and Recreation as a need for the quality of life in everyone's life. And I'm so glad that they recognize this and have funded it and supported it throughout the nation fairly well.
Do you have any advice for professionals of the future in this field?
Yes, I do. I think the thing we need to do, especially in these times when money is probably not also prevalent, is to remain quality oriented. Don't substitute quality for quantity. A lot of people think we need to do more and get bigger and be better and be bigger, but I think we need to provide quality facilities and quality programs. And when your citizens who are participating in those programs and use of those facilities see the quality that is there, they'll continue to support. And when resources may become more prevalent, you'll be the first to look to because you've done a good job with what they've entrusted you to in the past.
Great. What are some of the strengths of this profession in Missouri, and what are some of the challenges?
Well, the strengths of any Parks and Recreation program, I think, are the association you have with your citizens and your participants. The only association that some citizens have with any government is oftentimes through the Parks and Recreation Department, whether it be your children's day camp, whether the men's softball program, whether it's a walk in the park on the trail, whether it's taking your dog in the dog park or whatever. It may be the only association that some citizens have with your government. And I think the strength of any Parks and Recreation Department is the association and the ability to make, as I said before, the quality of life in every individual better because of using your facilities. The challenges, no doubt, are still continuing to take your place among what they call, or other people call, essential services: police, fire, roads, and such as that. We still need to tell people that Parks and Recreation activities, facilities, and enhancing their social abilities are just as essential as the other departments I just mentioned.
Terrific. That's it?
Okie-doke.
Whenever you're ready, just tell me about what your name is and
Okay.
what you do for MPRA and how you're associated with it.
Okay. My name is Dr. Randy Vessel. I've been associated with MPRA for about the past 38 years. I began when I was a graduate student at the University of Missouri and continued on throughout my career as a practitioner and then in higher education at the University of Missouri.
Great. Answer the questions.
Okay.
Tell us the biggest changes in the Parks and Rec profession since you started.
When I began with MPRA and with the profession, the graduates out of the universities and those entering the field were really the people breaking ground in a lot of communities. A lot of my classmates went on to be the first directors in communities, being the only person there, so to speak, and doing everything from soup to nuts in providing a program, facilities, developing staffs, and reaching out to the public for quality park and recreation activities. Since then, we have developed complete staffs in many of our communities. The expectations of the public have grown tremendously, and in many cases we provide venues and opportunities for recreation for the community that is beyond what many of us imagined we could do in the beginning.
Very good. Do you have any advice for the professionals in this field of the future?
Well, I think there's always challenges that all generations of professionals are going to face. They won't be the same challenges that some of us of our time face, but there'll be many others. It's a challenging time right now for them out in the field. You always have changing expectations, you have changing situations and opinions and attitudes of the public, and you probably have increased expectations ongoingly. I think that from an association standpoint, I think one of the things is that you shouldn't have unrealistic expectations of your association. Your association is really a forum or an opportunity for you to expect more of yourself as a professional and to use the people you know and the people you're with to help you become a better professional. The friendships, the mentorship, the colleagueship that you're going to have with the other association members will be key to your success.
What are some of the strengths of this profession in Missouri, and what are some of the challenges?
I think one of the strengths is that we have gained a reputation as being a highly professional cadre of people, talent and skills. We have some very talented people. We have people with high energy levels, and they approach their job with a great passion and a zeal that is speaks well of them. I think that one of the things that tells how very successful many of our professionals have been are the number of national positions and national organization recognition that our colleagues have obtained. Many of our colleagues, the ones that I was able to serve with, have gone on to be leaders nationally in the National Recreation and Park Association, the American Association of Park Administrators, and other organizations throughout that just speaks well of Missouri. I know that in many cases, Missouri practitioners have been in the forefront of service provision, of recreational design in facilities, and in other ways that just puts them on a par with everyone else in the nation.
Terrific. That's it.
That good?
That's it.
All right. Thank you, bud.
Did very well. Can I get this for me? Can you grab that for me?
You bet.
It's your turn.
He didn't ask us for any of our stories that we had on.
That's probably good. Especially you and I, Bessel. Well, of course, we could tell on Calvin and some of the other ones too.
You can just drop it in the pocket.
That's what I was going to do,
Yeah,
but
it
there's
doesn't-
some other crap in there. You closest one to me. You got it. Okay.
All right. So you got a chance to kind of hear the questions in advance. So are you ready now?
I guess as good as I can be.
All right. We'll start. Just tell me a little bit about yourself and how you're associated with MPRA, and then we'll get into the questions.
My name's Richard Ash, Jr. I've been associated with Missouri Park and Recreation since I went to work for the James Foundation back in the early 70s, 71, 72. Been through all the different chairs, if you will, in the organization, probably on almost every committee that they had. So I've been involved in, from A to Z as far as the organization has gone.
And what are the biggest changes in this profession since you started?
Well, it's one of the things you have to understand is that I'm not educated in Parks and Recreation. My degree is in engineering. I went to school at Rolla, the University of Missouri Rolla. So I kind of look at it from a different perspective, I think. But I think one of the things that I've seen, and I know it's been talked about how the profession, the people in the profession have progressed through time. And I really believe firmly that when I first got into the business, again, having the background of engineering and a lot of economics and things like that, most of the park and rec people that I was involved with early on knew recreation and knew park kind of skills like forestry, horticulture, those things very well. But they didn't understand many of the business principles that today I think are in the forefront of where Parks and Rec in any governmental organizations goes. And that gets into things like marketing, gets into pure economics, profit and loss, those kinds of things, asset management, a lot of things which I think are today. But I've seen that the actual level of professionalism, I think, in the individual in the workforce has grown on a tremendous basis. The other thing that I really think has happened is that there's been an explosion in my lifetime where when I was growing up and started in the profession, you had very basic park and recreation facilities that were ball fields, picnic shelters, playgrounds, essentially that. Even the playgrounds today are very complex in terms of child development, in terms of safety, compared to what they were in the day when I was growing up. Today, it's modern science in all avenues has taken over. You're also seeing the standard pool is not the square pond anymore. It's slides, it's water fountains, it's play equipment, it's zero depth pools. And those are just two examples, but you see that in almost every facility. I think also you're seeing parks and recreation organizations throughout the country are more involved in the environmental aspect of communities from when they were. Before we were green spaces and in a community, and that was it. And even at that, you weren't really tied to, I'll say, wildlife habitat, those kind of things. It was principally, we had grass out there, we mowed it, and we had a few trees and shrubs. And that was it. But from them, I think that's radically changed. And now they're in-depth, Park and Rec folks are very in-depth in all of those avenues where they weren't.
Great. Are they done yelling? Okay. Do you have any advice for the professionals of the future?
Yeah, I do. And then part of it I'm borrowing from some of my mentors over the years. Part of it I'm not. But I think one of the things that the Park and Rec professional who's in the profession currently and who aspires to down the road, I think really what they have to do is look outside their own profession. When you recognize that people are evaluating our services, our profession services, and the people they're in don't have degrees in Parks and Recreation. They're coming from business management, business administration, public administration, all kinds of other avenues that are really kind of evaluating, or the common area person in the community from all walks of life. But they look at what we do totally different, I think, than we do. And I think that the professionals have to listen to what the outside people are doing. Don't be hesitant about stealing ideas from the private sector and public sector or wherever that are good ideas and merge them into what we do. The demographics are changing rapidly. I'm in the baby boomer generation, kind of the lead element, as many of my peers are. That's going to radically change what happens out there in terms of what services are being provided. The attitudes of the generations which are following the baby boomers, and I don't mean when I say attitude, that's a negative connotation. They're radically different. We don't think the same, and that's okay. But with change, Parks and Rec and the profession has to change too. And part of my message here is look outside your boundaries. Look outside your comfort zone of the world that you live in, and bring in all the rest of it to merge it into what the people expect of you. That's who you work for, is your citizens. Pure and simple, you work for the citizens in your community. And so they're the ones that really should be helping and telling us, and you have to listen to do that and pay attention to all the other business, the other side. The other thing is Park and Recreation, pure and simple, has to embrace business practices to survive. And that's in today's economy, and at least for anyway the near-term future, you really have to look at your beans, and you're going to have to count them. And if you're going to be successful, you have to think long-term in terms of what that means, and not necessarily that I'm short of money today, gimme. You have to find ways to grow and be sustainable. And that, again, goes back to borrowing ideas from the private sector and the business sector and merge them into what you do. And we can do that. We have for years and years and years. Pools, as I said, are not the same. And they're not the same, and that really came from the business point of view, not from the public sector.
Great.
That's it.
Strengths and challenges of your profession in Missouri.
Well, and I'm going to address that as the whole profession, if you don't mind, and not just in Missouri, but I think both the strength and the challenge are the same. And it's the diversity of what it is that our profession does. There is no other profession in governmental service that is as complex as we are and does as many things, if you will. We have police, we have fire departments, we have water sewer systems, we have businesses, concession stands, if you will, hospitalities, things like hotels, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I can just go on and on. There's no other entity in government that is that complex. We do cemeteries even. That's a problem in one sense because people look at us as generalists.